Okay guys, now let's work on this home page. So if I close this here, and as you can see, we are going to have two sites in here also. One is for our users who to follow, and one is for our post. So I'm going to close all components here. Okay, and inside this component, home and this home component, we are going to add those all components here. Okay, so I'm going to change this to be section. Again, we are going to have a class name for this. So we are going to add this size, flex, gap should be 5 frame, and this should be relative. Okay, now inside here we need to have two divs for left and right side. So inside this section I'm going to add two divs. So the first one will get a class name of flex2. It means it will take 2 times bigger space. Padding wise should be 10, and margin bottom is going to be 4 rem. Now inside here I'm going to import our post components. Okay, now let's import this. You can see here are our posts, and in the right side we are going to have another component, and it's called follow. So at first, before that, we are going to have a heading tree like this one, and it should be this who to follow. I'm going to add it here. So this div will have a class name of heading. So in mobile version it should be heading, but for MD devices above it should be inline block. Okay, and also we need to have a little width for this. So in MD devices above, width should be 21 rem, and padding, and we need to have a border of left, and border color should be gray and 300. Okay, now let's make this follow component. Okay, so inside this home folder we are going to have another folder called users to follow, and I'm going to add the follow component here. Okay, now let's import it here. Alright, as you can see we have this components here. Okay guys, now let's fetch this post data. So inside this context API, as you can see we have fetched our users. So our logic for fetching our post data is similar to this one. So instead of doing the duplicate logic, I prefer to implement this fetch data using a custom hook. So in here, inside this component, I'm going to have a new folder called hook. Okay, and I'm going to say here use fetch.jsx. I'm going to generate this React functional component here. Okay, now in here we need to receive our props. It should be collection name. So the only thing which is different between this logic is this collection name, because in post it should be post collection name. So I just copy this use effect from here and add it here. Okay, let's import it here and import this query. We need to import this collection and also the onSnapshot function, and as you can see we have a useState hook. So I'm going to call this data and set data, which is equal to useState, and it's going to be empty string by default. Now let's change this to be the set data, and also we need to have a loading useState hook. So I'm going to call this loading. Okay, and it's going to be equal to useState hook and should be true by default. Now let's change this, and finally down here we are going to just return this data and this loading. Okay, now we need to change this collection name with our collection name props here. We need to import this DB also, and I think that's it. Okay, so now we can get this data and this loading from this use fetch hook. So now let's open this post component here, and let's just delete them here, and instead we are going to have a section and it should be post. Okay, so in here I'm going to get the data and loading from use fetch component. Okay, so if I console log this data here, and of course we need to pass our collection name, it should be post. Okay, so if I inspect the browser here, as you can see, we have this post. So currently we have only one post in here. So if you wanna do the same for this user data, go ahead and do that. Just delete it from here, and instead of getting from this context API, you can get it from the hook. So I don't want to waste time. I just wanted to show you how you can get this data using custom hook. Okay, as you can see, at first we need to have this cart, and when I click this, it will open my post details in here. Okay, so now let's style it. So for this section we are going to have a class name, flex column, and gap should be 2.5 frame. Okay, and inside here we are going to map through this data, but before that we are going to check if there is loading. We are going to print this loading component. Okay, and otherwise we are going to map through this data. So we are going to get each and every post here along with the index, and we need to print another component post cart in here. Okay, let's import this loading, and let's make this post cart. Inside this post folder we are going to have this component. Okay, and let's import it here. Now we need to pass this post, which is equal to post, and key is going to be equal to this index. Okay, and this should be map here. Now you can see we have only one post, so let's jump to this post cart and receive this post here. At first we need to destructure all the items inside this post. So we are going to get in the title from here, ID should be post ID and user ID. Okay, now let's change this to be section. We are going to have a class name for this, flex should be column. For small devices above, flex should be row, gap 4, and it should be cursor pointer. Okay, now as you can see in here we also have two sides. So our image is in the right side and our text is in the left side. So for that cause we have added this flex box. So now let's add this div for our text. It will have a class name of flex 2.5. So it will take this much space. Okay, now inside here we need to have a paragraph with the class name of padding bottom 2. Font should be semi-bold and it should be capitalized. Okay, and let's copy this username for now. Okay, this username should be dynamically. So based on this user ID we are going to find our user data. So again I'm going to have data and loading from our use fetch hook, and this time our collection name should be users. So let's get user data here. If we have data, then we are going to find this specific data. So data dot find, we are going to get each and every user. So user.id is equal to this user ID. Okay. Now instead of this text, I'm going to get it dynamically. So get user data dot username. As you can see, here is our name. Okay. Now following that, we need to print our title. So in here we need to have a heading 2 with the class name of TextXL. Font should be bold. Line clamp should be 2, and leading is going to be 6. We need to set it to be capitalized, and let's just print our title here. Okay, here is our title. Now let's print our description here. So down here we need to have a self-closing div. Okay, and it has a class name of padding y1. Text should be gray and 500. Line clamp is going to be 2, and leading is 5. Okay, as you can see, our text editor will generate this type of text along with the HTML elements. So to get rid of these HTML elements, we are going to have another property inside our div. It's called dangerously set inner HTML. We need to have double curly braces and just write underscore HTML and just set it to our desk. Okay. Now you can see here is our description. Now we need to calculate the time of the post reading, and also we need to write our date here. So at first we need to install another library. So npm install moment, it will help us format our date. Okay, and also for this reading time we need to have another function inside our helper function. So I'm going to open that helper function again. We need to export a new function. I'm going to call that read time. It will receive our description here. Okay, now inside here at first we need to have the average reading time that a person read words, and it is 225 words. So every person on average will read about 225 words in a minute. So down here at first we need to generate a new div. So I'm gonna call this div. It should be document.createElement, and we are going to generate this div here. So now we are going to assign this div.innerHTML to be equal to this underscore HTML. Now down here we are going to say const text content, which is equal to this div.textContent or div.innerHTML. Okay, so we just get whatever text we have inside our div. Okay, and now it's time to calculate the reading time. So in here I'm going to say words text content.trim. It's a JavaScript function, and now we need to display that, and this is just regex. I get it from Google. Don't worry if you don't understand it. We are going to just return math.cell, and inside here we are going to say words.length reading time. Okay, and this is how you can calculate our reading time. Now let's import this function inside our postcard. You can see our library has been installed. We need to display this image. So down this div we are going to have another div. Okay, I'm going to add this div, and this time it will take only 1 times bigger space. So inside here we are going to have an image tag. The image URL is going to be this post image. Okay, and let's add this alt here, post image. Okay, here is our image, and I can add a class name here. Width should be 53 rem. Okay, I think we made a mistake, so I need to wrap this div with another div, and I'm going to copy this class name from here and add it to this div here, and I need to change this to be fragment. Okay, so outside of this div I'm going to have another div with the class name of flex. Items should be center, justify between, width should be full. For empty devices above, width should be 70%. Margin top is going to be 2 rem, and for empty devices above, margin top should be 0. Okay, now inside here we need to have a paragraph with the class name of text extra small. Text should be gray and 600. So inside this paragraph we are going to print our reading time. So if you remember, we had a function called reading time, which is read time here. Okay, and inside this function we need to send our description, and it should be this HTML and disk. Okay, and following that we need to have a text minimum read, and following that we need to add our date. So we need to import moment library here and add our created date.format. Okay, and we need to format it based on this month and day. Okay, let's delete it here, and as you can see, here is our reading time and here is our date of publishing this post. Okay, and finally, as you can see, we have this button here. So this button will help us save the post. So we are going to add this button in a separate component. So down this paragraph we are going to have another div with the class name of flex, item center, and gap is going to be 3. So inside here I'm going to have a component called saved post. Let's make this component. So inside this post I'm going to have another folder called actions. Let's add this saved post component here, and I can just import it here. Okay, and we need to pass our post here. So post should be equal to post. Alright, now let's receive it here. Okay, now let's implement our saved post. So I'm going to change this div to be a fragment. Okay, and inside here we need to have a button. This button will have a class name of hover, and opacity should be 60. Okay, and the value is going to be this icon. I'm going to import it from React icon here. Okay, as you can see, here is our icon, and I can give a class name for this also. You can say text pixel. Okay, and we need to say pointer events should be none. Okay, here is our button. Okay guys, we have completed our push cart here. So I'm going to push this. Push cart is added, and I'm going to stage all the changes here and just commit it to the GitHub.